Hello, everyone. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and thank you for joining me today. Before we begin the stream, please let me know if you are having any audio issues or any sync issues between the audio and the video so I can take care of those now. And I'm going to take a moment and watch chat and see what's happening there. So how do I bring up chat? Right there. There we go. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. Gasentia Fox, thank you so much. We can hear you fine. Great, great, thank you. So, I don't know how many of you saw the segment with John Oliver. It was pretty popular. I think Murray Energy accuses them of having 146 million subscribers, so I'm betting that some of you have seen this. So the show was really good on Sunday, as it always is. It is something to aspire to for me as well. And yes, Yoshi, I am letterboxed because I am using the webcam. If you remember the last live stream, the DSLR cut out a couple times when it hit the 30-minute timer, and I'm just going to use the webcam until I completely figure out and test what was going on there. Shadow Made Killer, $5. Thank you so much for the donation. Sounds fine to them. Really appreciate it. So what I was going to do today was talk about the lawsuit that Murray Energy and a bunch of others filed. Let me at least put that up so you can start to see that. And they all basically are accusing John Oliver and HBO of intentionally causing this ruckus to defame and destroy Mr. Murray. I don't know how much of that there is actually any merit to. So so I thought we'd go through the complaint, line by line. There's 24 pages, but you know me and my style. We'll go through it and figure it out. And if you're in the car or whatever, you can just put the video on 144p or whatever, and just listen to the audio. So I thought that would help those of you who want to just hear the audio as well. Axis, something like that. Axis, love the stuff you do. Keep it up. Here have some useless Swedish crowns, about $5. Thank you so very, very much. I do appreciate. Believe it or not, all the donations really do add up. The vast majority of the donations I receive are $1 to $5, and they really do add up, as you can see from the Patreon page. So anyway, enough about that. In the Circuit Court of Marshall County, West Virginia. Let's see, do we want that up? Somebody complain in chat if you don't like the inset that I've got. I've got a second one with absolutely nothing on it. So you just let me know which one chat prefers. In the Circuit Court of Marshall County, West Virginia, filed by the Marshall County Coal Company, the Marion County Coal Company, the Monongalia County Coal Company, the Harrison County Coal Company, the Ohio County Coal Company, Murray Energy, and Robert E. Murray personally. Plaintiffs. Versus John Oliver, Charles Wilson, Partially Important Productions LLC, Home Box Office Inc., Time Warner Inc., and John Doe's 1 through 10. And it appears to have already been assigned to a judge, Judge Kramer, who I have no idea. This is in, West Virginia. So I'm from Pennsylvania. I could actually drive to see any hearings or anything like that happen. So if this goes anywhere at all, I will be most interested in it, but I have my doubts. Complaint. On June 18th, defendants executed a meticulously planned attempt to assassinate the character and reputation of Mr. Robert E. Murray and his companies, including Murray Energy Corporation and those in West Virginia, on a world stage. They did so for their personal financial gain by knowingly broadcasting false, injurious, and defamatory comments to HBO's approximately 134 million paying subscribers, while also knowing that their malicious broadcast would be repeated to countless more individuals through various outlets, including other media owned by certain defendants. They did this to a man who needs a lung transplant, a man who does not expect to live to see the end of this case. They attacked him in a forum in which he had no opportunity to defend himself, and so he has brought this suit to try to set the record straight. So far, so good. This callous, vicious, and false attack upon Mr. Murray and his companies was defendants' most recent attempt to advance their biases against the coal industry and their disdain for the coal-related policies of the Trump administration. Okay. In carrying out their self-serving attack... Wait, I see what I'm doing here. I'm cutting off too much at the top. I'll make sure I show the what I'm reading. In carrying out their self-serving attack on Mr. Murray and his companies, however, defendants ignored facts in their possession that directly contradict the false and defamatory statements about Mr. Murray and his companies that they improperly passed off as truths to the nation and throughout the world. Worse yet, defendants employed techniques designed solely to harass and embarrass plaintiffs, including Mr. Murray, a 77-year-old citizen in ill health and dependent on an oxygen tank for survival, who, despite the foregoing, continuously devotes his life, including by working 7 days each week, to save the jobs and better the lives of the thousands of coal miners that he employs in West Virginia and elsewhere. Defendants childishly demean and disparage Mr. Murray and his companies, made jokes about Mr. Murray's age, health, appearance, made light of a tragic mining accident, broadcasted false statements, and incited television and internet viewers to do harm to Mr. Murray and his companies, all before a worldwide audience, including the thousands of people that work for and do business with Mr. Murray and his companies in West Virginia. In fact, medical doctors have informed Mr. Murray that he should stop working because the stress is shortening his life. Mr. Murray must, however, continue working because of those individuals who rely on him. But nothing has ever stressed him more than this vicious and untruthful attack. Okay, so you're with me so far. There's only been about 1 or 2 phrases in here that are an actual legal claim. The rest of it is, I'm butthurt and I want to tell my story too, but I didn't get to tell my story on HBO, so I'm going to sue them. At least so far. That's what it sounds like. We'll keep going. The plaintiffs require intervention from this court to prevent further injury at the hands of defendants' harassment and blatant and purposeful disregard for the truth, the stress of which has caused Mr. Murray significant emotional and physical distress and damage, and this fact is readily apparent on him. Mr. Murray depends on continuous oxygen supply. Okay. I don't think any of that is actionable unless they can also prove the things they're saying, and they haven't said any of the things yet. So, let's see if they get to some of the things that they actually think this man and HBO has conspired to do. Mr. Murray is the founder, chairman, etc. of Murray Energy. He serves as president of the other plaintiffs. He's a resident of Ohio. In order to provide for his family, he began working as a coal miner at a very young age. I don't know all about the oxygen tank and everything, but I would imagine that if you work in a coal mine your whole life, you probably do have more lung problems. I'm not making a statement about Mr. Murray, however, I am connecting some things that correlate in my mind. He labored arduously underground for 16 years of his life and later used his life savings and mortgaged nearly everything to purchase his first coal mine. He continued his work underground by visiting his miners every month until July 22, 2016, when he was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a progressive fatal disease requiring intense medical care. Potential lung transplant, continuous oxygen, and culminating in a significantly reduced life expectancy from diagnosis. Well, that's sad. Well, all that is very sad. He worked very hard to achieve, and he's sick. And I'm not, there's no gotcha here. That's, working in a coal mine can have those consequences. Again, I'm not saying that his lung disease has to be connected to the coal mine, but I mean, can someone correct me? Those two things would be connected, like in anyone else's mind, right? I'm not jumping to a conclusion here, right? Over the last 30 years, Mr. Murray has built Murray Energy and its operating entities into the largest underground coal mining company in the United States and the largest coal miner in West Virginia. Along the way, he has also built a strong reputation as one of the staunchest defenders and most ardent champions of the United States coal industry and America itself. As a coal miner his entire life, Mr. Murray is and has been unwavering in his insistence upon safe working conditions and the pursuit of policies and practices that promote and reward safety above all else. Mr. Murray is listed by the Mine Safety and Health Administration as the current controller for all of the mines owned by plaintiffs, and the public equates the mining business of each plaintiff with Mr. Murray. Okay. Let's see. More about the coal companies and where they operate. I think I can skip some of this. If you really want to know, let me know in the chat. John Oliver took my oxygen too. Yeah. This is more party information. Mr. Murray's businesses employ over 5,400 people in 3 countries and 6 states, including over 2,800 employees in the state of West Virginia. Okay, that's great, but didn't he just say that he's the largest operation in the country? Wouldn't that be rather small? Does that mean that our coal mining industry really isn't that big at all? Or am I misstating that? Someone correct me. Studies show that for every 1 coal mining job provided by Mr. Murray's business, up to 11 secondary jobs are provided in communities where mines are located, meaning that Mr. Murray is responsible for the creation of up to 31,000. Okay, well, I take issue with the secondary statistics. I am absolutely sure that extra jobs crop up when big businesses come into place. It is hard for me to let him take credit for that without more. Defendants are persons and organizations fundamentally opposed to the revitalization of the coal industry. Okay, nothing wrong with that, though. I guess they're speaking to motivation. Oh, having described coal as environmentally catastrophic, HBO is owned by Time Warner, which is widely reported as a top 10 donor to Hillary Clinton, as tracked by the Center for Responsive Politics at OpenSecrets.org. As a presidential candidate, Ms. Clinton's agenda was to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Okay. Defendants' broadcasts have vigorously supported and advanced Mrs. Clinton's agenda. This is getting weird. When defendants made Mr. Murray and other plaintiffs aware that they intended to advance their anti-coal agenda by, among other things, broadcasting injurious, false, and defamatory statements to millions of people. I'm sure that's how it was phrased, right? I'm sure they said, we're going to broadcast injurious, false, and defamatory statements. What do you have to say? On June 18th, Mr. Murray and the other plaintiffs at defendants' invitation, believed to have been extended under the guise of responsible and ethical journalism, transmitted information and facts directly contrary to the injurious, false, and defamatory statements that defendants threatened to broadcast. I think they're saying they sent stuff to HBO. But instead of reporting the stuff they sent, including those facts which defendants secured through their what turned out to be disingenuous outreach to Mr. Murray and his companies, before the broadcast, defendants ignored them and doubled down on their character assassination of Mr. Murray and the business reputation of his companies, ending their recorded broadcast with the phrases, "Eat shit, Bob," and "Kiss my ass, Bob." Has anyone ever said a harsh word to this man? Because this does not cross many lines here, people. This is wow. Somebody's gotten their butt hurt here. Defendant Home Box Office, Inc. is a corporation organized under the laws of Delaware, pay TV network, 134 million subscribers. John Oliver is the host. On information and belief, the defendants and other persons wrote the script. Okay. Defendant Charles Wilson is senior news producer, and other people wrote the script. Defendant Partially Important Productions is a production company for Last Week Tonight and others who wrote the script. Defendant Time Warner was made aware of all facts and is therefore also, and then others who had somehow been connected to the thing. Venue, somehow arises in West Virginia. It doesn't explain. Okay, general allegations. On June 18th, defendant HBO initially broadcast an episode of Last Week Tonight, which defendant Oliver hosted, wrote, and produced. Before the broadcast, defendants made Mr. Murray and Murray Energy aware that they intended to discuss the decline of jobs in the coal industry, the political criticism of President Obama's war on coal, the recent regulatory rollback by the Trump administration, and the prospect going forward of a revival of coal jobs. Now wait a second, that sounds different than what he said above, that he was contacted about and told that he was going to say defamatory things. They specifically referenced plaintiffs' mining operations in West Virginia, stating they intended to mention other pressures on coal jobs outside of regulation, including the competition that Appalachian coal has faced. When defendants contacted Murray Energy, Mr. Murray and his companies were under the false impression that defendants would use this supplied information to accurately and responsibly broadcast the facts and circumstances regarding the topics of the upcoming broadcast. Have these people never worked with a journalist before? You give them the information and then they make their own story out of it. And you have to be careful which journalists you do that to. It's not like they don't know who John Oliver and HBO are and don't know that they make exposés. This is not news to them, and they should not have been surprised. In fact, if I was their PR person, I'd be advising them to provide the information anyway, and then, release a statement at the end of it. This is basically like a PR statement, except they've done it as a lawsuit. So far, I still don't see anything that's defamatory here. Mr. Murray and the other plaintiffs warned defendants that their sources of information and the information itself were outdated and were false and defamatory when they were made and remain so. You recklessly rely exclusively on previously discredited media reports. Okay, so it sounds like HBO did provide some media reports that they plan to rely on, but okay, so they had a chance to, so Murray Energy and Mr. Murray had a chance to respond to that. That does not mean that anyone has any duty to use your information unless there is some actual defamation, some actual false reporting and lying going on. At defendants' invitation, plaintiffs provided detailed information and facts directly contrary to the injurious, false, and defaming statements that defendants threatened to broadcast. Okay. Plaintiffs demanded that defendants cease and desist from any effort to defame, harass, or otherwise injure Mr. Murray or Murray Energy. Okay. One subject that defendants notified Mr. Murray and his companies that they intended to discuss was the collapse of and subsequent rescue efforts at the Crandall Canyon mine, operated by Genwall Resources. Thank you so much, Snowy Lane, and the others. I've seen a few others roll through here for the $2 donation. Thank you, Sean, who says, "Eat shit, Leonard." And the only crazy Canadian, coal mining in America is less than 60,000 jobs, $2 Canadian, thank you. And Joshua Smith, $2, thank you. Sorry for the brief interruption, but I do want to say thank you to everyone. To ensure accurate reporting, and given the sensitivity surrounding these tragic events which resulted in the loss of 9 lives and injuries to several others, Mr. Murray and Murray Energy provided summaries of and citations to reports evidencing that the mine collapse was in fact triggered by what is commonly understood as an earthquake. Whoa, wait, you had to use qualifying language with earthquake? What is not an earthquake but is commonly understood as an earthquake? Or what is so close to not being an earthquake that you need to use qualifying language like commonly understood as an earthquake? That sounds to me like you're trying to say a subsidence is an earthquake, but Again, that's just me reading into it, not my misstatement of facts, Mr. Murray. Among other things, Mr. Murray and Murray Energy provided defendants with the following facts. When Mr. Murray first learned of the collapse, he was in Montana and rushed to the mine, arriving within 4 hours of the incident. Okay, I don't think there's any duty to report that. I don't think anyone reported that he didn't come to the mine. Mr. Murray then spent the next 28 days at the mine, directing rescue efforts, personally attending to the families, etc. Okay, again, I don't remember anyone saying that he didn't attend to the mine. Although Mr. Murray was understandably unable to satisfy all the expectations of the public and the family members of the trapped miners, he and his team worked around the clock to try and rescue the miners and showed honesty, sincerity, and compassion every day in his communications with families and the public, held frequent meetings several times a day, provided for every possible need for all the members of the trap. Yes, that's fine. That's great that he did all of that, but again, he's trying to say that John Oliver somehow had a duty to report these things, and that's not true. John Oliver probably had a duty not to report false things, but he doesn't have a duty to report what you hand him just because you handed it to him and said, this is what I want the story to say. Excandescent, thank you very much for the $20 donation. No message. I just really appreciate your gratitude. That means a lot to me. Everyone tried their hardest to rescue the trapped miners. Over 45,400,000 people were committed to the rescue efforts because there is no price on human life. The Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration's report regarding the collapse contained multiple concessions that a sudden change in stresses due to a slip along a joint or slip in the overburden, which is very similar to the definition of an earthquake. Okay, except that you're screwing with the geology, so you could create a slip along a joint or a joint slip in the overburden, and I don't even need to be a geologist to know that you're cutting through the rock that's supporting the rock above it, and if something slips, it could collapse. I'm not blaming you. I don't know whose fault it is, but you're saying it's an earthquake, and that John Oliver defamed you by saying it probably wasn't an earthquake. And now you're showing us it's something you have to qualify as similar to an earthquake. I'm sorry, that smells foul to me. Both sudden slip on a fault and the resulting ground shaking and radiated seismic energy caused by the slip could have been a factor in triggering the collapse, and was one of the likely candidates for triggering the collapse. But MSHA and its experts chose not to analyze the seismic data of the triggering event and instead focus on the secondary collapse, which was a disservice to the lost miners, their families, and the truth. Okay, so then you, because there's no price on life, you commissioned an independent study, right? Because you didn't want to rely on their experts who were not conducting the thing the way you wanted. Let's find out. I don't think he actually did conduct that study, or he wouldn't be relying on theirs. Studies have shown that the mine collapse was a seismic event originating in the Joes Valley Fault Zone. Okay, maybe there are studies. What studies? I think if he had anything to do with these studies, he'd be like, I commissioned this study, and no, I don't see him. He's not doing that. More specifically, these studies indicated that the triggering event for the seismic disturbance, which was not consistent with normal mining, induced seismicity resulting in the collapse, occurred on a subsidiary fault parallel to the Joes Valley Fault. This is a more technical manner of stating that the collapse was caused by what many would characterize as an earthquake. Again, you're using the qualifying language with the earthquake. When Mr. Murray arrived at the mine, the University of Utah was broadcasting that an earthquake had occurred with an epicenter 4.7 miles from the Crandall Canyon mine. The major Joes Valley Fault was nearby the mine. Murray and his companies referred defendants to the publicly available studies, indicating that the collapse was initiated by a seismic event akin to an earthquake. Yada, yada, yada. Changes in mining induced seismicity before and after the 2007 Crandall Canyon mine collapse. study stating that lineations apparent in the newly detected events have strikes similar to those known vertical joints in the mine region, which may have played a role in the collapse. Okay, may have. So he's trying to create doubt here that the thing could have been some kind of seismic event. Okay, let's see what John Oliver said that's so terrible here. I guess in a few paragraphs. Appendix S to the MSHA report. Back analysis of the Crandall Canyon mine using the model program. This particular analysis indicates that a sudden change in stresses due to a slip along a joint in the roof certainly could have been a factor in triggering the collapse seen on August 6th. The USGS defines an earthquake as both a sudden slip on a fault, yada yada yada. From the modeling, it was not clear exactly what triggered the August collapse. Likely candidates include a joint slip in the overburden. Okay, so what he's saying is that we don't necessarily know what caused the slip exactly. Okay. And so we're going to have to point to some statement that John Oliver made that was definitive in saying that they found it to be a safety violation on his part when that wasn't true. So we're going to be looking for that now. Another seismological report on August 6, 2007, University of Utah Department of Geology and Geophysics, stating that it was relied on by the FMSHA, but saying that it was not determinative. In a discussion of the source mechanism, the first motion data alone do not provide definitive results because normal faulting mechanisms can also be fit to the data, and concluding that most but not all of the seismic wave energy in the event was generated by the mine collapse and not by a naturally occurring earthquake. So I guess they're citing that some of the seismic energy in the event was not part of the mine collapse and therefore could have caused the mine collapse. Okay. Now I don't know, I already said I don't know much about mining, but I'm going to guess that you have to plan for seismic events and that mine collapses can happen from seismic events that aren't earthquakes or water shifting or hitting pressure points or whatever. Obviously, I'm not a geologist because I don't know any of these terms, but it seems to me like there's going to be a lot of gray area here, and we're going to really need to point to someone making a clear statement, a clearly defamatory statement. And remember, it's not just one minor defamatory statement in a whole broadcast. You take the whole broadcast as a whole. The University of Utah also relocated the epicenter of the initial seismic event to the western edge of the mine, close to the Joes Valley Fault Zone. So he's creating doubt here. He's basically creating the doubt that it was, or he's creating the possibility that it could have been an earthquake or seismic event. I don't know if I'd be relying so much on this qualifying language that what people consider an earthquake. His equivocation and his extreme statements, Mr. Murray's extreme statements, are what discredit him here, saying things akin to Obama did this or that. I'm not even sure how quickly Obama could kill the coal industry if he really wanted to, but I'd be interested to hear your opinion on whether Obama's policies really did kill the coal industry, or whether that's more of an economic circumstance and regulation. Regulation certainly can kill industries. I'm no stranger to that, and I'm not ignorant or arrogant enough to think that you couldn't regulate coal out of existence. But that said, like oil and other kinds of fossil fuels, it is not a clean energy source. So if you try to make the planet cleaner, does that mean that Obama regulated me out of existence? Now you're getting back into this gray area. You want to talk about that it's an earthquake or a seismic activity, and I want to say, well, you got to regulate coal because it's dirty. So you want to talk gray areas? Let's talk all the gray areas. George Young, thank you very much for the €2, I think that is. Mr. Murray and his companies warned defendants to cease and desist from a broadcast of defamatory comments or any misguided attempt at humor regarding the tragic mine collapse. I'm not sure that the humor was in the tragic mine collapse. I'm pretty sure you're missing the joke there. I don't think anyone is laughing at the tragic mine collapse. You know what I'm laughing at? I'm laughing at your misunderstanding of the humor of the situation. At least Mr. Murray's attorney should have been able to look at the situation and say, I know what's going on here. And so, again, I'm not stating that I know what the attorney's thinking, but some attorneys take cases, even though they could advise their client, hey, just let this go under the bridge. Instead, they get their client fired up and they say, hey, you better file a big lawsuit and give me all the money. And I'm not saying that that's what Mr. Murray's attorney did here, but some attorneys do that. And that's how they make a living. And that's kind of why yours truly isn't the most wealthy attorney in the world, because I try to avoid all that stuff. I don't think that that's right at all, to just milk money from a client. Again, I'm not saying that that's what's happening here, but that's what could be happening here. Some people would certainly consider that that's what could be happening here. An independent report could be commissioned that might say that that's what's happening here. So does it sound good when I use Mr. Murray's equivocating and qualifying language? Plaintiffs also warned defendants that broadcast of the republication, excuse me. Whew, there you go. You see my bias. Wow, you got the Hillary Clinton and stuff all the way up there, and I got Republican on the brain. Plaintiffs also warned defendants that broadcast of the republication of the previously published malicious false statements upon which defendants relied will severely harm the reputation of Mr. Murray and Murray Energy, which is obvious defamation, and cast them in a false light before the public. Plaintiffs demanded a second time that defendants cease and desist from any effort to defame, harass, or otherwise injure Mr. Murray or Murray Energy. In the ensuing broadcast, defendants deliberately omitted the facts plaintiffs provided regarding the Crandall Canyon mine incident. There was no mention of the efforts Mr. Murray personally made to save the trapped miners. Defendant Oliver did not tell his audience that Mr. Murray arrived at the Crandall Canyon mine within 4 hours, nor did defendant Oliver say anything about the 28 straight days Mr. Murray spent on the mountain overseeing the massive rescue efforts and administering the facilities. Nor did he mention that Mr. Murray personally led the rescue efforts when workers were injured and killed in a subsequent event 10 days after the initial seismic event, in fact pulling rescue workers from the debris and attending to their injuries with his own hands and administering to them. Let me pause here, guys. and let me speak directly to Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray, those are all wonderful things that you did in response to a tragic accident. Those things belong in a PR statement, not a defamation lawsuit. If you're about to say, because I haven't read the rest of this yet, if you're about to get to the specifics of the defamation, excellent. Because we're 12 pages into a 24-page document, 13 pages into a 24-page document, and you still haven't told us what the actual defamation is. You've whined a lot about not getting credit for your rescue efforts. That's not John Oliver's or any reporter's job. Some reporters will voluntarily report things like your rescue efforts. Other reporters won't. And reporters are allowed to have an agenda since the Fox News case in the 1980s. We don't like that. We would like to have responsible journalism and responsible reporting that is not allowed to skew and bias and things like that. However, it's a balancing act between that and free speech. So if you want to say these things publicly, I've given you a voice. You're welcome for that. You need to put these things in a PR statement on your website, not file a lawsuit, because this looks worse for you, not better, when you file a lawsuit. If we were reading all of these things in the context on your website in a statement, I think that would have done really well for you. But instead, suing them, again, we're going to have to get to these next 12 pages or 11 pages, but let me go back to it, and we'll see what he has to say. But I'm guessing that he's not getting around to it anytime soon. Instead, presumably to boost ratings, line their pockets with profits, and advance the show's anti-coal agenda, defendant Oliver intentionally, falsely, and outrageously conveyed that Mr. Murray has no evidence to support his statements that an earthquake caused the tragedy that took the lives of Murray Energy miners during the course of their work for their organization. Rather than fairly characterizing the evidence that he had in his possession on the subject, defendant Oliver instead quoted an out-of-context snippet from a single report stating that there was no evidence that a naturally occurring earthquake caused the collapse. Because defendant Oliver omitted any mention of the other reports he was aware of that evidenced that an earthquake caused the collapse, as Mr. Murray correctly stated following the collapse, defendant Oliver's presentation intentionally and falsely implied. Ryan O'Donnell, thank you for the $50 donation. As Mr. Murray correctly stated, defendant Oliver's presentation intentionally and falsely implied that there is no such evidence. In fact, however, even the report defendant Oliver selectively referenced out of context itself contains evidence, as plaintiffs pointed out prior to the June 18th broadcast, that the earthquake or an earthquake or earthquake-like event triggered the mine collapse. Moreover, defendant Oliver quoted the sweeping executive summary of the MSHA, which obviously and grossly overstated the actual conclusions contained in their own report, which defendants easily would have seen upon a cursory review of the actual MSHA report. But again, defendants obviously were not interested in the truth, as they intentionally ignored the facts pointed out in advance by plaintiffs and did not conduct a reasonable inquiry prior to that or thereafter. Okay, so it seems to me the only specific defamation allegation is that John Oliver and HBO didn't go far enough in reporting that it could have been an earthquake-like event, and that they quoted the summary of the MSHA report, which then plaintiffs go on to disagree with the summary of the MSHA report, saying that John Oliver had a duty to look further into the MSHA report, disagree with the MSHA report's summary, and report that instead. And this is somehow defamation. And if I recall correctly, John Oliver's words were not, "This is the fact," but rather, "It's been reported that this is the fact." Is that not how it was? I was watching it before this, but I did run out of time when I realized I needed to do my audio checks and everything, and didn't want to be late to start the stream. Worse still, as discussed, defendant Oliver's senior news producer, Wilson, obtained from plaintiffs detailed information evidencing that an earthquake or earthquake-like event did trigger and cause the Crandall Canyon mine collapse. Defendants intentionally and with malice disregarded this information and ignored the parts of the MSHA report that undermined and cast doubt upon Mr. Oliver's statements in an effort to further damage Mr. Murray's reputation. They also did this despite knowing the determinations of causation are vastly complex and can take years before a reliable conclusion can be reached. So, Dan Devine, thank you for the $1. So, plaintiffs, Mr. Murray, are going to have to show that within this gray area of this MHSA report and all the other analyses of the mine, that John Oliver then made some clearly false statement that then actually damaged them in some way. I'm also curious to hear what the actual damage is, because we can't just have speculative damages in defamation. Defamation requires actual proven damages, which means showing an actual loss of money and connecting it causally to, in a way, I don't know all of the details. I haven't done too many defamation cases. Most of the defamation cases that come my way, I talk my clients out of them, because I'm not one of those attorneys that likes to just take the case to take your money. I only want to take the case if I can really help you. Defendants also aired a clip of congressional testimony of a relative of a former employee of Murray Energy that appeared to be dissatisfied with Mr. Murray's handling of the mine collapse, when upon information and beliefs the statements of that employee were not his own but were instead scripted by adverse counsel in a lawsuit against Murray Energy and given to the employee to further the agenda of such counsel and their clients. Okay, that's a weird allegation. Counsel is allowed to give their represented party a statement that the two of them work on, and as long as the statement is factual and accurate, that's fine. Have you sued those people? Because if you haven't sued those people, you're discrediting yourself. The MHSA report that you disagree with so much, why isn't that defamatory? This thing with this employee, a former employee through his legal counsel made a statement. You're allowed to. You can make a statement through legal counsel, and your legal counsel is allowed to help you tailor the statement. I can't help you lie. Believe it or not, I know this is a hard one to accept. Lawyers, attorneys are not allowed to help their clients lie, at least not in an official capacity to a court. Jim Chilton, thank you for the $2. Then Defendant Oliver reinforced the impression he gave his audience that Mr. Murray lied about the cause of the mine collapse and gave no evidence to support his position. Radial, thank you for the €2. With other thinly veiled implications that Mr. Murray is a liar in general. Well, I mean, some of the extreme statements he's made certainly don't help his credibility, do they? Specifically in reference to Mr. Murray's denial of an absurd story that Mr. Murray claimed a squirrel told him he should operate his own mines, Defendant Oliver stated, "You know what? I actually believe Mr. Murray on that one, and even by your standard, that would be a pretty ridiculous thing to say." P. Whitdog, thanks for the $5. Great job. Say my name. Gravy Art 1995, thank you for the $5. They implied that Mr. Murray lied about other more important matters, such as the cause of the line collapse, and that he treated the affected families. And I guess they're saying that he lied about them treating the affected families with honesty, sincerity, and compassion. But the way they phrase the sentence, and that he treated the affected families with honesty, sincerity, and compassion. Okay. As if mocking the tragic mine collapse. Attorneys, listen up. You do not need extraneous language like, as if mocking the tragic mine collapse. This is a pleading. You just make your allegation. You say, mocking the tragic mine collapse that took the lives of 6 miners and 3 rescuers, and insinuating, because when you add qualifying like, as if mocking the train collapse, as if insinuating that Mr. Murray was a liar, that just only discredits your own position. Keith Schusterman, so cool to have an actual lawyer break these things down. Thank you. And thank you. So cool to have your support. I really appreciate it. Defendants also falsely insinuated that plaintiffs and Mr. Murray disregarded the well-being of their employees. Okay. I would have to see the specific. For example, Defendant Oliver stated during the broadcast that Mr. Murray and Murray Energy appear to be on the same side of black lung, and that their position regarding coal dust regulation was the equivalent of rooting for bees to kill a child. Well, what regulations have you been opposed to, Mr. Murray? Because if they are regulations regarding the safety and well-being of miners, then that's a valid point for Mr. Oliver to make. Yes, and let's not forget that HBO has a team of lawyers on retainer to check these things. No, I am not one of them. I would love to be one of them, but really HBO takes the top of the top, the cream of the crop, and that honestly isn't yours truly. I try to do a good job at everything that I do, but I am not a top 10%er. I'm not a big law lawyer, and I'm just doing the best I can with what I got. You know how we all go. Defendant's characterization of Mr. Murray and Murray Energy as villainous, however, is itself vile and baseless. Substantial evidence establishes that the regulation at issue has no health benefits. Murray Energy relied on highly credible third-party expert review of the regulations for the basis of its litigation. And with the statement that Murray illustrates the divide that can exist between a coal company's interests and those of its workers, particularly in the highly slanted context of the overall broadcast, defendants falsely imply that Murray Energy sacrifices safety for profits. Defendants create this false impression by willfully avoiding facts demonstrating Murray Energy's true safety accord. The Native Lover, pew pew pew. $50 Canadian. Thank you. Congratulations. The amount your channel has grown is remarkable. Keep on keeping on. And you too. Keep on keeping on being the native lover. And keep on pew pew pewing. Fellow kids. Defendants also frostly Defendants frostly broadcasted. No. I think this complaint is a little frosty. Defendants have falsely broadcasted that Murray Energy and other plaintiffs implemented bonus policies that sacrificed the health and safety of their employees. Never did defendants broadcast that these bonus programs were at all times predicated on safety compliance and performance measures. Defendants omitted that the very title of the bonus program was the Safety and Production Bonus Plan. Defendants failed to state that employees found violating safety standards would face automatic disqualification from receiving bonuses under the program. Defendants knew these facts before the broadcast aired, and in spite of them, broadcasted that this bonus program sacrificed safety and health standards. Okay, that could be an actual defamatory claim. If they really said that there were no safety and health standards, or this reduced safety and health standards, and then it can be shown that the only information available to Oliver and HBO was that safety and health standards were improved. Otherwise, that sounds like a statement of opinion. Liam Cochran, $5. Thank you for breaking this down. I appreciate you, Liam. Defendant Oliver also failed to mention, despite having the information, that Mr. Murray has pioneered emergency response and fire suppression training in the coal industry. Nor did Defendant Oliver mention the facts in his possession that Mr. Murray has fought for retiree, medical, and pension benefits for coal miners that never even worked in his company. Instead, defendants continue their ruthless character assassination attack on plaintiffs' business reputations by describing Mr. Murray as someone who looks like a geriatric Dr. Evil. Okay. Really, again, future lawyers, call attention to the actual relevant, germane, salient, and meritorious parts of your case, and leave the rest at home. Because all this does is promote the Streisand effect. It promotes the drama, and it promotes people like me wanting to read it publicly for money. You know, like, really, this is having the opposite effect of a PR statement. A well-written, well-crafted PR statement through a good PR agency could do all of the things you're looking to do here, and totally damage control whatever's about to happen that you think you can prove is defamation and actual damages. That's just my humble opinion as an attorney. You're welcome to disagree with it. Excuse me. Instead, defendants continued their ruthless character assassination and arranging for a staff member to dress up in a squirrel costume and deliver the message, "Eat shit, Bob," to Mr. Murray. I don't know if you can say that we were delivering it to Mr. Murray. They were delivering it to Mr. Murray. I mean, we, the community. They were delivering it to the audience. And if Mr. Murray happens to watch, I guess, sure, it was directly to him. If that were not enough, after the live taping, Defendant Oliver exclaimed to the audience that having someone in a squirrel costume tell Mr. Murray to eat shit was a dream come true. Well, that's just awesome. That's so. Even worse, toward the end of the broadcast, Defendant Oliver confirmed that defendants intentionally expanded their attack against Mr. Murray, and that plaintiffs As retaliation for plaintiff's good faith efforts to ensure the accuracy of the broadcast, Defendant Oliver stated, "Bob Murray, I really didn't plan so much of this piece to be about you, but you kind of forced my hand." $5 from Stefan Nuxel. Murray seems to be infatuated with his own accomplishment, not the alleged defamation. Chloe Hassler, Canadian, $2. Bob, you're a bitch. Lil bitch. Lol, lol, lol. I thought I saw someone else in here. Don't want to miss you. Thank you. Thank you all. Unfortunately, with their false and malicious presentation, defendants succeeded in villainizing plaintiffs and inciting injury to plaintiffs. That's another thing. Let's talk about this. It is June 22nd. It is Thursday. That broadcast was on Sunday, June 18th, 4 days ago. Now, I'm not saying that you can't file a defamation case and then start collecting your evidence of actual damages, but they have not. They have not collected and should not be able to show any actual monetary damage yet. And so why even file the case? Why not just take the time to put your case together? You have 1, 2, 3 years, depending upon your state's statute of limitations, to get it together and file a much more complete case. This feels like a knee-jerk reaction, doesn't it, people? This feels like a person who's had their ego bruised and is lashing out in response. And forgive them, they know not what they do. I'm not religious, but I happen to believe a lot of those kinds of do unto others kinds of teachings. And it sounds like Bob has some issues with his image and his ego. And you know what? I don't know how much you guys observe the psychology of the people around you, but a lot of people have issues with ego and image. So I can sort of understand him wanting to lash out, but holy geez, nobody pulled him aside and said, "Hey, do this with a PR firm, with a PR statement, and it'll be a whole lot better." Unfortunately, with their false and malicious presentation, for the following defendant's lead, for several days after the June 18th broadcast, Murray Energy's website was hacked and inundated with the message incited by defendants Eat Shit Bob. Okay, well, this makes a little more sense why they're upset, but that's not defamation. I'm sorry, that's not illegal. I mean the hacking that stuff's illegal. Yes, John Oliver didn't tell you to do that. John Oliver, didn't tell you to riot against Murray Energy. John Oliver just showed you what was going on. I guess they're going to try and connect the dots and say that all of this is connected and therefore HBO is responsible for it. This is what I would call a deep pockets part of the lawsuit. You go after the party that has the deep pockets. I don't even know what currency that is, but you gave me 200 of something that has two horizontal lines and 2 angled lines through it. Akash Kashyap, thank you very, very much for the donation. Has the concept of defamation changed recently? As far as I recall from school, defamation referred to statements of fact. Correct. You are 100% correct, and I've been dancing around that for this entire video, but yes, it only applies to statements of fact. There are still some qualifiers there that you can get out of defamation by issuing a retracting statement as well. So basically, even if HBO agreed with some of this and issued a statement saying, "We were wrong about Bob having not responded to the mine disaster." Let's assume that they said something. Glassjaw Murray v. Little Oliver. Little John Oliver, KO in 1. Nice. I like it. The American way, $2. Really appreciate it. Where was I? Defamation is only facts and only certain kinds of misstatements, material misstatements of facts, misstatements of germane, relevant, salient facts that it can't just be Mr. Murray's car is red when Mr. Murray's car is green. It has to be more than that. It would have to be Mr. Murray is a thief when Mr. Murray is not a thief. those things. Mr. Murray is a rapist when he is not a rapist. Those are defaming statements. This is so far from that I don't think it's defamation. If they had evidence of the defamation, I think they would be leading with it. We wouldn't be 16 pages into a 24-page complaint and 54 paragraphs in with them still trying to make arguments out of nothing. Well, not nothing. Obviously, they're pissed about the connections and the presentation and all that, but journalists are allowed to say bad things about you. They're not allowed to make it up from scratch, but I don't know that he made it up from scratch. Jones the Moblin, thank you for the $10. Came across your channel during Jim Sterling. Have loved having someone who knows the law help break down these lawsuits. And you know what? I have been equally surprised at how much interest you guys have in having these lawsuits broken down. So I am just going to keep doing more and more of this, and if it keeps growing, this will eventually be my job, I guess. Unfortunately, with their false and malicious presentation, they villainized him. Not only was the broadcast caused injury, reputation, property through the website, but these false and disparaging statements have interfered with and harmed and will continue to harm plaintiffs' relationships with employees, vendors, and customers. Indeed, plaintiffs have already received numerous harassing telephone calls echoing defendants' false and defamatory statements. Norps, $100. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to try it. Nandhagopal Moralathar. I like the name. This is righteous posturing, I think, not an actual claim. This currency is the Indian rupee. Thank you. Today I learned what the Indian rupee's currency symbol is. Thank you so much to both of you. I am very grateful to all of you, including Norps with the $100 donation. Very unexpected. And I really appreciate all of your donations. Since the initial broadcast by HBO, which has received at least 2.5 million views and has been broadcast and 4.2 million views on YouTube and 1.2 million times on Facebook with 29,000 likes and an unknown additional number of times by people on streaming sites, the number of people that view defendants' false and malicious broadcast grows every day. The above statements by defendants are defamatory and reflect discredit upon the methods by which plaintiffs do business. That's an awkward way of saying it. I guess that's what they mean. AGBMO, $2. There's a site that will anonymously mail feces. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Well, please don't do that on my account. Nor do you need to do that to me, either. That would be technical backchod. 20 Indian rupees. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. On information and belief, all defendants acted jointly in writing and producing the June 18th episode, as well as the episodes referenced above regarding Hillary Clinton. What do you think? Is this maybe like some kind of political tool? Is he going to try and take this back to his supporters and say, and I made the point about Hillary being a jerk and Obama being a bastard? And, yeah, I don't know what that means. Does that mean anything? Or are those just ancient relics of a bygone era that we conduct ourselves that way when we're trying to have a conversation? DL Binham, $1. Thank you very much. On information and belief, all defendants shared the same reaction to the correspondence from Murray Energy's in-house counsel and acted with the same motives and intent. Alicia Cockfield, $2 Canadian. Thank you for what you do. Count 1, defamation. Plaintiffs restate and reallege all of the other paragraphs of this complaint as if fully set forth herein. Upon information and belief, the defendants caused the defamatory statements to be published with knowledge of the falsity and those statements, or train wreck. Let's back up. Actually. Paragraph 58. This, why do people do this? This was an arcane requirement of the law where the counts didn't necessarily include the foregoing allegations unless you specifically said so. You don't really have to do that anymore in most areas, but you'll have to know for your area. I read it just because I'm in reading mode, But that's what that is. I'll skip the next time I see those. 59. Upon information and belief, defendants cause the defamatory statements to be published with knowledge of the falsity of those statements or with reckless disregard as to the falsity of those statements. Okay, so that's basic defamation. The defamatory statements are defamatory per se, on their face. They reflect plaintiff's reputation and character in a manner that injured plaintiff's reputation and subject plaintiffs to public hatred, ridicule, shame, or disgrace, adversely affected plaintiff's trade or business. In the alternative, defamatory statements are defamatory per quad in that they are capable of being interpreted as reflective upon plaintiff's reputation or character. Okay, these are the basic elements of defamation. Injured plaintiff's reputation, expose them to public hatred, ridicule, shame, adversely effective plaintiff's trade or business. I do know what 1,000 yen is, Mishu. Thank you very much. Maybe you could tell me what this phrase means. When I was in Japan, I was taught to say, see you later, moto omo ni kakarimashou. And I don't know what that means, and I've been told that that's not what see you later is in Japanese. So somebody correct me on that one. Let me scroll back up here. There were a couple donations I wanted to cover. TNT Radio Empire videos. Love the content and the explanations. Thank you for the $2. $2? Sorry. $2. Thank you for the 1,000 yen, Mishu, and thank you for the wow, they're scrolling by so fast. Oh, I don't even know what HUF 400 is. Peter Meunier, thank you. Just so you have some more weird currencies. I always appreciate that. That's awesome. Prince Artemis, $2. Eat shit, Bob. So Dark Fire Ice, $5. Thank you so much. So far, like, Bob is obviously very upset about these statements and everything, but again, the defamatory statements have to do more than just injure reputation and adversely affect. They have to be false. They have to be false in a particular way, too. They have to be clearly false, materially false statements. The defamatory statements were published and continue to be published with malice and without any lawful privilege or basis. That's a publication of the defamatory statements will cause plaintiffs to encounter more difficulty in securing surety bonds from lenders. I don't know about that. And publication of the defamatory statements has already caused plaintiffs harm with their reputation with such lenders. So they're saying that they've gone to their lenders in the past 4 days and said, hey, has this harmed our reputation with you? Are you going to stop doing business with us? And they've said yes. And you didn't include that fact here. Okay. Publication of the defamatory statements will cause lenders to be less willing. Okay, maybe they expect some fallout. Fine. Thereby preventing them from gaining access to the capital needed to operate their business and making it more difficult and expensive for them to obtain such capital, and publication of the defamatory statements has already caused plaintiffs harm in this regard by damaging their reputation with such lenders. I guess they're making the conclusion that it has already damaged their reputation, not that they've actually have evidence of that. Again, that seems kind of premature. This seems like a knee-jerk reaction. This seems like a PR move. Michael Riddle, keep up the good work, $2. Thank you very much. This is scrolling by so fast, guys. And Andreas Fitzner, DKK, 20. I don't know what DKK is. Great job. Eat shit, Bob. Shadow Maid Killer, $5. Are there any negative repercussions for grandstanding like this? Seems like a giant waste of time to discuss all this PR crap in court. Yes, this is where we start to... so the American rule for compensation for attorney's fees and costs is that the parties, whether they win or lose, usually bear their own attorney's fees. So win or lose, HBO would pay for their own attorneys and Murray would pay for his. However, when you have bad faith things like these could be, a judge could rule and HBO could make the argument successfully that they are owed their attorney's fees. And judges have agreed that you need to have a deterrent against bad faith filings and grandstanding and things like this. Again, that this could be, if they can't prove these statements, that Murray would end up having to pay HBO's legal fees. And vice versa. If it turns out that HBO does something in bad faith as well, or that Murray Energy is 100% correct, yes, a judge could grant Murray Energy their attorney's fees as well. So if they have a strong case, yes, you absolutely go for defamation and all that, but this is too soon. This is too quick to do your due diligence as an attorney, in my humble and professional opinion. Badoli, €5. Thanks. Keep up the good work. Scrolling by so fast. Joseph Pignataro, $2. Have some magic money magic law person. Thank you so much. Piersked, $2. Well, this is one way to pay your student loans. Thank you very much. Yes, this helps pay the student loans as well as the expenses and all that too. And I'm not ever gonna really pay off the student loans this way, but this at least pays the monthly that I gotta make to cover everything. Eric Porter, $2 each. Shit, Bob. Jesse Pinkman. Hey, Jesse. PLN 50. Okay, you might not be the same category as HBO lawyers, but no lawyer in the whole world can come close to your hat game, sir. Thank you. Greetings from a Finnish guy living in Poland. So this is Polish. What are Polish? Dinar? I don't know what the Polish currency is. Svenung Toristal. I probably butchered that. I'm very sorry. Is that Norwegian kroner? Is that what that is? 50. Suggest stacking chat above picture. Keep document unobstructed so people can read with you. Yeah, I'll probably change it for next time. I've already got it all set up. But thank you. I do appreciate the suggestion. Always. You know what I could do? I can also take this and make this one step smaller. I don't know if that is any easier or if that is worse. Maybe I can choose an actual percentage. Hang on. Try 130 or 135. And we'll see if see what the reports are from that. Pierced, $2 for pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you so much. John Miller, $2. I wish my attorney had been so affordable. Everyone wishes to have an affordable attorney who also wants to work hard for them. That's part of the problem. A good friend of mine, maybe not so good anymore, but an old friend of mine used to say, I never got done with a case and said I should have charged that guy less. So, Jeremy Gola, $10. A-Town native, glad to see someone giving back. Go Canaries and eat shit, Bob. Hey, I don't know if you've been here for a while, but it's changed a little bit. They're doing a revitalization of downtown. It's one of those kind of artificial things, but I think it's just going to take hold. I think you can force it a little bit. Okay, back to the counts. We were on the count of defamation. They were either per se defamatory statements or they were per quad. So per se was they're defamatory on their face, and per quad is that they are capable of being interpreted as being defamatory. And you have to make these statements, you have to make these claims in your complaint because that's what we do. It's an adversarial complaint. Viper Bite X, $5. Thank you. W Nivik, $10. Thank you. I watched your videos on and off for a while. Here's something for your troubles. Really appreciate it. You really have no idea how much this will help out in July. I'll be able to make more and more videos because I need to take fewer and fewer ancillary cases. I can still take copyright cases and everything, but I also have to take other cases like divorce cases and traffic cases and things on the side to try and pay the bills and keep my skills fresh and all that. And so with these resources, I can most definitely take more time to make more videos and spend more time on those videos. Pula Kumar, 200 Indian... Oh, crap, I forgot what the Indian currency was already. But I do remember that it's an Indian currency. Bob Burry will just prove last week's Tonight Point. If he's arrogant enough to follow up on this cease and desist letter, I can't wait until he falls flat on his face and eats shit for real. I appreciate the sentiment. Also, $1 from Lisa Raka Vampfe. I like your hair. The only thing I want to stop short of crushing the guy any further than he needs to be crushed. I think he should suffer the natural consequences of this filing in this court case and any of his past bad behavior. I'm not saying that. Let's not go any farther than needs to be, because it does sound like the guy's at the end of his life, and it's not necessary to make him more miserable than he already probably is. CJ, $5. I'm going to hire you next time I get sued by an ass-blasted coal tycoon. Elite Geeks, $1. Thank you very much. The defamatory statements were published and continue to be published with malice. Publication of defamatory statements will cause them to encounter problems securing surety bonds, will cause lenders to be less willing, will cause plaintiffs to encounter difficulty in having effective discussions with public officials, including regulatory agencies, regarding matters of concern to plaintiffs' businesses, and publication of the defamatory statements already has caused plaintiffs harm in this regard by damaging their reputations with such public officials and agencies. Again, how much of that do you actually believe, that they're going to have trouble with public agencies because of this? The public agencies already have the reports, and they already have access to the information that this report, that John Oliver's entertainment news piece was based on. So I don't think that changes anything. Regulatory officials don't just stop dealing with you because the newspaper published an opinion piece on you. Yes, if the newspaper published defamatory statements or published statements that of things that were not defamatory but were very negative, yeah, there'd be natural consequences to that. So I do get that there is a claim for defamation under hypothetical circumstances, but I have difficulty agreeing with that these things that John Oliver said were defamatory, were actually reached that level. Andre Solizano, $2. Thank you for all your videos. I appreciate you. And then, wow, you guys are very generous today. I'm a little floored. Duck Hunt Pro, Norwegian Kroner 100. I feel sour having to donate to American in hope of someday benefiting off changes, decency, and logic entering into U.S. copyright DMCA laws. Keep doing the good work, Mr. French. Pirate Bay, Norway. Thank you very much, Duck Hunt Pro. Zach 1387, $1, and DG Jono, is that a British pound, I think? Following you for a while, $10, 10 British pounds. Thank you. So have a few guineas, for your trouble. I guess I don't know what that symbol was. That's guineas. Publication of defamatory statements will encounter public officials. Publication of the defamatory statements will cause plaintiffs to suffer a loss of business opportunities and a loss of potential or existing customers for their businesses, and publication of the defamatory statements already has caused plaintiffs harm in this regard. Okay. Again, they have to prove this in court. They have to actually show customers left because of the statements, not just because of the information contained in an entertainment news piece, but that information was defamatory and caused those people to take their business elsewhere. They also have to prove that the business would have gotten the money, that it wasn't just a customer saying, well, maybe I would have, but an actual dollar not getting spent. Publication of the defamatory statements will cause plaintiffs to suffer loss of business opportunities and loss of potential or existing vendors. Publication of the defamatory statements has already caused harm in this regard. Publication of the defamatory statements will cause plaintiffs to suffer a loss of business opportunities by making it more difficult to attract talented employees. And publication of the defamatory statements has already caused them harm in that regard. And the publication of the defamatory statements has caused and will continue to cause damage to plaintiffs' reputation, goodwill, and good standing in their communities and industry. Okay? Count 2, false light, invasion of privacy. The defamatory statements constitute false light invasion of privacy in that the defamatory statements have subjected plaintiffs to unreasonable and highly objectionable publicity by attributing them to characteristics, conduct, or beliefs that are false, thereby placing them in a false light before the public. The false light in which plaintiffs have been placed due to publication of the defamatory statements would be highly offensive to a reasonable person. Defendants had knowledge of the falsity of the defamatory statements and acted in reckless disregard as to the falsity of the defamatory statements and the false light in which plaintiffs will be placed. Publication has caused and will continue to cause members of Mr. Murray's family to suffer great mental health anguish and emotional distress. Publication will cause difficulty in securing performance surety bonds from lenders. Lenders will be less willing to assist and engage in financing transactions with plaintiff, preventing them from gaining access to capital needed to operate their business. Will cause plaintiffs to encounter difficulty in having effective discussions with public officials, etc., etc. Loss of potential or existing business, loss of business opportunities, and damage to plaintiffs' reputation and goodwill, and good standing in their community and industry. And I think this is the last one, count 3, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Plaintiffs, by defendants' conduct in publishing the defamatory statements to millions of people worldwide, and thereby viciously, falsely, and purposely attacking Mr. Murray, his appearance, his companies, and his lifelong dedication to the coal industry, was atrocious, intolerable, and so extreme and outrageous as to exceed the bounds of decency. Defendant's conduct has caused severe emotional distress and physical damage to Mr. Murray. Defendants intentionally inflicted emotional distress upon Mr. Murray or acted recklessly when it was certain or substantially certain that emotional distress and physical damage would result from their outrageous conduct. Defendants have broadcast the show since April 27, 2014, and in that time the show has developed a loyal fan base averaging millions of viewers. In the past, upon information and belief, fans of the show have acted upon the biased and inflammatory comments made by defendants to attack, harass, and injure subjects of the show. Indeed, in the days following June 18th, Murray's Energy's website received 30,000 spam messages within a 20-minute window in an effort to crash the site. A third, potentially more damaging attack received from multiple sources forced Murray Energy to take its website down to implement new increased security measures. Additionally, as discussed above, Murray Energy has received numerous harassing telephone calls since defendants aired their outrageous broadcast, including from callers whose only message was the one that they heard defendants repeatedly utter on June 18th, "Eat shit, Bob." Since the date of the broadcast, and due to the stress and physical damage caused by the malicious and defamatory statements of defendants, the resulting misconduct of others incited by defendants' conduct, Mr. Murray's health has significantly worsened, likely further reducing his already limited life expectancy due to his idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. No reasonable person could be expected to endure the emotional distress and physical damage that Mr. Murray has suffered as a result of defendants' conduct. Wow. Okay. So, intentional infliction of emotional distress is a real thing. It's a very high bar. They're really going to have to show that John Oliver knew that he was going to inflict emotional distress on Mr. Murray and that that was mostly the intention of it. I'm sure there's more to that than that. I have never pursued an emotional distress case, and anyone that I've ever considered was shot down very quickly. Corey H55, $20. Thank you. Can you cover just 3D print Thingiverse drama and look at the lawsuit that they said that they filed? Yes, let's talk about that for a second afterwards. Hang on after I finish this complaint here and ask me again. You don't have to donate another $20. Give me 1 sec to go back up for the other donations because I don't want to miss them, because there were a couple of them while I was reading that. Ninmin58, can I do a video on the differences between UK and US patent law? Yes, I can try to do that. I am not a patent lawyer. I have basic patent understanding, but I can definitely do that video, but please understand that it's going to be less from experience and more from my research. Maybe what I could try to do is find a patent attorney who wants to appear on the show and explain that difference, and we could have kind of a discussion that way. Harsha 5500, 200 Indian... crap, I forget what the name of the thing was. What are the Indian dollars called? Not dollars. Rupees, thank you. Jesus Christ, sorry for my cursing. That's just bad of me for forgetting it's called the rupee. That's terrible. Joseph Pignataro, Bob the type to sue Santa for giving bad kids coal. $2. Thank you so much. And then Andrew Jacobson, $10. Thanks for being our favorite copyright attorney. I really appreciate that. I am honored that you allow me that title. Wherefore, plaintiffs respectfully request, as to all counts, judgment for general damages in favor of plaintiffs and against defendants, in amount to be determined at trial. General damages would be like compensation, restitution, making the person whole for the injury that they suffered. Judgment for special damages in favor of plaintiff and against defendants in the amount to be determined at trial. Special damages would be like extra damages. I'm trying to think of the difference between special and punitive. Special damages would be like, I don't know, an amount that's extra but is somehow not punitive. Some lawyer in the comments correct me on what special damages are. Punitive damages are then extra damages which are meant to punish. Paul Gartner, there is also a site that will not... See, glitter bombs are at least a little better. I can deal with a glitter bomb. A glitter bomb can be cleaned up with, a vacuum cleaner. And at least you've got some pretty glitter. I mean, who doesn't like glitter? Except maybe someone in a clean room. Poop will clean away. Sparkles will haunt your periphery for months. Poop is biological, though. And I think that's a little weirder. Jesus Christ, $2. It's okay. Say my name all you want. All right, buddy Christ. Judgment for punitive damages. An award of attorney's fees and costs. A permanent injunction prohibiting rebroadcast of the defamatory statements and requiring the removal of defamatory statements from public access and any other relief as the court deems just and proper. And I'm going to very carefully scroll up here because I am not going to dox their attorney. Just in case, I don't want to promote any of that stuff. Somebody who wants to do that, they know where to find this complaint. It's not hard to find the complaint and figure out how to dox the guy. I'm not going to make it any easier for anybody than that. And I am not calling for anybody to do that. First of all, we don't know how much of this... the attorneys aren't always responsible for the hyperbole. Sometimes the client wants this kind of hyperbole. Peter Jurdy, WAPO says many Murray defamation cases have been dismissed over the years. Would there be any interesting statements by the judges in those cases? Yeah, probably. And I would want to find those documents. So either somebody with access to LexisNexis or Westlaw might be able to look those documents up, because my fast case system probably does not have documents on the county level. Usually we're looking for law. I'm looking for law at the federal level, and I don't really need that much of a county level. Or if someone has access to those documents in West Virginia, you can do that too. Luna Blarp, 2 British pounds. Thank you very much. Have some British pounds. And did I miss anybody else? Andrew Jacobson, yes, you are. I got you before. I got Paul Gardner. I got Jesus Christ. Great. So we're caught up on that. Okay. So what is going to happen? Excuse me. What's going to happen from here? I have my doubts that this case is going to proceed into Marshall County, West Virginia court. This sounds like the kind of thing that will be removed. It's a very simple procedure. It will be removed to federal court. It may have been already. I don't have access to the Marshall County docket, and those things don't happen in real time anyway. So all someone has to do from HBO is file the proper notice of removal in Marshall County, and it will suddenly be removed to, I guess, the District Court of West Virginia, because I'd have my serious doubts that there's a Eastern or Western District of West Virginia. Zach 1387, $5. Love your work here, Leonard. But what are your thoughts about when Bob said my Dixie wrecked? Out of context, I don't remember what that meant. Can you, without paying again, could you please tell me what you mean by that? And I'll look for it. And then real quick, who is that who asked about... let me go back up here. Not the glitter bombs. There was one other person up here. Keep going. Ah, I can't go up that far. Favorite copyright attorney. Let's send glitter bombs. Oh, $10 from Keith Hoff. Oh, I can click on these? Oh, jeez. That makes it so much easier. I'm scrolling through the whole list trying to catch all of the donations. Aaron W. Nichols, and I can just click on them apparently. You're more informative and coherent than my current solicitor. Here's some Aussie cash. Aussie cash, pronounced with a Z. 25 Aussie dollars. Thank you very much. There was a question about the Just 3D print suit, and I did want to cover that before I forgot. Yes, I will be covering that, and probably very shortly. One of the 3D printer suits, Just 3D printed, sued Stratasys and got a default judgment for $12,000. That means nothing. Stratasys very well could have known about that, or not even known about it. It's in Philadelphia Municipal Court, and for a small fee, Stratasys will probably appeal the thing. It can be appealed within 30 days. So that default judgment really means almost nothing. It really, all that it means is that Stratasys didn't respond to a lawsuit, and we don't know why. That's really all that means. So the actual contents of the suit and the claims and all that, I think that Just 3D Print It totally misunderstands intellectual property law and copyright, and says things like, you have to register the copyright before you can make a claim. No, you have to register the copyright before you can file a lawsuit in court. And it does not mean that you don't have a valid copyright until you register it. It means you can't file in court until you register. And there's been some recent precedent, and receive the valid registration application completed, approved. Once you receive the approval and have a valid registration, then you can go ahead and sue. So that's weird, because how does that play out with the 3-year statute of limitations? If you discover infringement in the 3rd year, now you're trying to file a copyright registration and get it approved before the several months it takes to get it approved in order to file a lawsuit. And so you're filing something called a nunc pro tunc, a now for then motion with the judge, trying to get dates to line up legally that don't already line up, and it's a weird process. So I actually don't agree with the Supreme Court's or whatever circuit it was, Ninth Circuit, that said that you have to have a valid registration approved by the Copyright Office before you can actually sue. But that's the kind of thing that Just 3D Print It misunderstands, and if they talked to a lawyer at all, they would probably know most of these things. Paul Banwell, what do you think of things like the Free Law Project is making a copy of documents on Pacer and making them available for free? Well, thank goodness, because that needs to be done. Pacer is 10 cents a page. There's currently a class action lawsuit. It costs me several $100s a year to do legal research, and now that I'm doing more of it with the YouTube channel, it's costing me over $200 a quarter. Well, I think the last one was $150, so close to $200 a quarter, depending upon the amount of research I'm doing for these cases. I try to find these complaints free online as much as possible. Because they're public domain, Pacer does not need to charge 10 cents to each person who gets a copy of the complaint, but that's how the system is set up, so they do. Let's go back here. All right. So what I think is going to happen here is that this case is going to get removed to federal court. We'll see the case in federal court, and it'll play out from there. I really hope that HBO decides to fight the case with all of their might, because it would just be a great show, and I could make more shows on it, and heck, even HBO could make more shows on it. They could have ancillary content that gets posted to YouTube that John Oliver shoots or something. I don't know. I think that it'd be a really fun time to follow up with later in some show. And it would be very instructive to many people, and deterrent to many people who might file a claim like this as to what it takes. Could the 3D printing video include a discussion of the Creative Commons license? Yes, it absolutely can and basically has to, because there is a difference between copyright infringement and using someone's copyrighted material in violation of a contract or license or agreement. And so the only claim that I think Just 3D Printed might be correct about is when someone says that they've violated thousands of copyrights, they may have violated Creative Commons licenses and things like that. How much of which I don't know. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to try to look it up, see how many of these things we can find, uh, see what licenses we can find, and see what they might have actually violated, if anything at all. $10 from Calvin the Great. Any comment on the validity or finding of finding new quality employees claim in court? Minors' deaths were addressed via one interview with one victim's family and a short speech clip. Well, I mean, is the coal mining industry there's going to be a certain amount of finding new employees that's going to be difficult for a coal mining industry already. That said, there are a lot of people complaining about not having a coal mining job, so it sounds to me like they're just not offering enough jobs or enough money, and that I don't know that that's defamation. I don't know that making it so that people are more aware of the situation, your reputation, and deterring them based on true facts, that's allowed. I can state true facts, and if those true facts have the natural consequence of Mr. Murray having trouble hiring people, that's allowed. It's if I make a materially false fact and people rely on my false fact to make that same conclusion that they shouldn't work for Mr. Murray, that's closer to, if not already, probably defamation. And then if Mr. Murray can show I had to start paying my employees $10,000 more each after they saw your show because of your defamation, if he can prove that, yes, that defamation, that $10,000 each employee would technically be part of the defamation suit and could be recoverable. It's a very long way to get there, to actually connect those dots amid all the arguments. I'll give you the divorce lawyer's argument. A lot of people ask me, my spouse cheated on me, so I should be able to get everything in the divorce, right? No. Most states, most counties, most jurisdictions recognize no-fault divorces these days, and it's very difficult to get a fault-based divorce through, because the fault argument goes like this. Well, you cheated on me. Well, I wouldn't have cheated on you if you had sex with me. Well, I would have had sex with you if you weren't always so tired. Well, I wouldn't be so tired if I didn't always have to work to support you. Well, you wouldn't have to work to support you if you were nicer to me. Well, I'd be nicer to you if you took me out once in a while and showed me that you liked me. Well, I'd take you out once in a while if we had more money. Well, we'd have more money. And you see the rabbit hole that you get going down. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with this case, with defamation. That is not 100% clear defamation. You're going to have this back and forth, this he said, she said kind of back and forth of, well, your statement injured me. Well, my statement was based on this report that this journalist made. Well, that journalist's statement is wrong. Well, you never challenged it. Well, that statement's still wrong. Okay, we'll make a retraction. Well, that's not enough. Well, that is enough. And that. You see the rabbit hole you get down. I don't really see this kind of thing working. And I think Mr. Murray has seriously misjudged his PR efforts, is basically what this is. Sorry, I got kind of ranting there for a moment. How are we doing? $20 from Jennifer Murphy. Creek swimming. I think I heard you mention that you doubt that there is an Eastern Western District Court in Virginia. As a West Virginia resident, there is a Northern and Southern District Court, not an East and West. For real? West Virginia is big enough that they have a North and South District Court? Hang on, I'm looking this up. It's not that I don't believe you. I'm seriously Northern District of West Virginia? Holy crap, you're right. There is. West Virginia is big enough that it has 2 district courts. I guess it is kind of deceptively big. It's right there, tucked in besides Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Virginia, and oh crap, I forget what's to its west. Is that Kentucky? I'm not looking at a map, so it's in between a bunch of bigger states. So please forgive me. It looks much smaller than I guess it actually is. So I apologize for misunderestimating the size of your state. Aren't I going to deduce something? What am I going to deduce? I deduce that what I've been saying, this is a PR statement. This is not a complaint. This is a PR statement that has been filed in court in the form of a complaint. And if they actually go through with this, it's just going to be messy for everyone. It's going to stress Mr. Murray out even more than he already is. John Oliver's only getting what he wants. HBO is only getting the attention that they want. Heck, I'm getting more attention because of it. So here you go, Mr. Murray. You've generated jobs. That is not the way it's supposed to. Well, it does work this way, but it's not the way that I want it to work. So yeah, that's my conclusion, is that this is not. So what I have not done is I have not gone meticulously through the HBO segment and compared it to these allegations now. And I don't know of a way that I can do that that's a fair use. So maybe in a future video, I'll break down what I think the actual defamation could be and what John Oliver actually said. But from the 10 minutes that I watched before this, and I did watch the whole show on Monday, I did not hear anything that said to me, it did not scream to me defamation. So, Luck Puddle says Bob's PR suing to be a victim for base sympathy. Yeah, it's a political statement. Be sure to check out the recap browser extension. I don't know what that is. Alex Peterson, thank you for the $2. Sorry, I interrupted myself. Back to Luck Puddle. Yeah, it could be he wants to be able to say I sued. Even if he loses, he can say the phrase, "We sued the crap out of them," and that will count for something to someone, I'm sure. I mean, I can also not misunderestimate the amount, the effect that political dissuasion, that muddying the waters, that misinformation can have. I am not concluding whether this is misinformation. I'm saying this looks like it could be misinformation, and if it is, that's what it is. It's an attempt to muddy the waters and be able to, in the future, state, yes, we did sue them, and I cleared my name, or at least tried to, or something. I still, other than that, it's gonna, some lawyers gonna get paid, a few lawyers are gonna get paid, and it's generated some economic and social interest in the form of all this discussion that we're having. Charles Miller, can you discuss the flashlight complaint? I've never heard. Oh, yeah. Let me go back to that then after I say thank you, D Shog KG, $5. Sounds like he took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and probably half the rod. Oliver was waiting for this. I was too after the episode. Yep, he did. Let's go back to that part that Charles was talking about. False light. You said flashlight, but I know what you meant. Am I making you sick yet? Okay. False light is not something that I deal with too often, but there is something in the law called casting someone in a false light. Let me see what I can quickly find on Wikipedia so I can talk extemporaneously about it. I am not prepared to bring up the Chrome work. So I'm not prepared to bring up Chrome. Sorry. False light is a legal term that refers to a tort concerning privacy. It is similar to defamation. The privacy laws of the United States include a non-public person's right to protection from publicity, which puts the person in a false light to the public. So to me, that says that Mr. Murray has to be cast in a false light and has to not be a public persona. False light differs from defamation primarily. It is intended to protect plaintiff's mental, emotional well-being, rather than protect a plaintiff's reputation, as is with the case of defamation, and in being about the impression created rather than being about veracity. If a publication of information is false, then a tort of defamation may have occurred. If that communication is not technically false but is still misleading, then a tort of false light may have occurred. False light privacy claims often arise under the same facts as defamation cases, and therefore not all states recognize false light actions. There is a subtle difference in the way courts view legal theories. False light cases are about damage to a person's personal feelings or dignity, whereas defamation is about damage to a person's reputation. The specific elements of the tort of false light vary considerably, even among those jurisdictions which do recognize it. These elements generally consist of the following: a publication by the defendant and about the plaintiff, made with actual malice, very similar to the type required in the New York Times v. Sullivan defamation case, which places the plaintiff in a false light, and that would be highly offensive or embarrassing to a reasonable person. Some U.S. courts have ruled that false light lawsuits must be rewritten as defamation suits. These courts generally base their opinion on the premises that any publication or statement giving rise to a false light claim will also give rise to a defamation claim. Examples: a tabloid newspaper printed pictures of a 96-year-old Arkansas woman next to the headline "Special Delivery, World's Oldest Newspaper Carrier Quits Because She's Pregnant. I guess walking all those miles kept me young." The woman, who is in fact not pregnant, had run a small newsstand in the town since 1963, prevailed at trial under a theory of invasion of privacy for false light. She was awarded damages of $1.5 million. $1.5 million. The tabloid appealed, generally disputing the offensiveness and falsity of the photograph, alleging that Mitchell had not actually been injured, and claimed that Mitchell had failed to prove that any employee of the tabloid knew or had reason to know that its readers would conclude that the story about the pregnant carrier related to the photograph printed alongside. The Court of Appeals rejected all of the tabloid's arguments, holding that it may be that Mrs. Mitchell does not show a great deal of obvious injury, but Nellie Mitchell's experience could be likened to that of a person who has been dragged slowly through a pile of untreated sewage, and few would doubt that substantial damage has been inflicted by the one doing the dragging. Oh, I really appreciate that analogy too. Dragging someone through a pile of untreated sewage won't really injure them, but no one would doubt that there has been substantial damage. So that is what they're talking about with false light, that the statements were misleading, and that the misleading statements against this non-public figure hurt his feelings so much that they caused actual legal and recoverable injury. So if you wanted to read what a person should do when they get butthurt, this is it. And I guess this is why you shouldn't go around trying to make people so butthurt with false information. I'm not saying John Oliver said false information. I'm saying, in general, you can't just go say false things about people to hurt their feelings and get others to brigade on them. You could be violating the law, not just of defamation, but also false light, invasion of privacy. Alex Keenan, $10. Thank you. Love your streams and your sexy voice. Thank you very much. I appreciate my sexy voice as well. I sing a lot. I'm a singer, so my throat. I keep my throat open, and I use my diaphragm. I've been singing since I was very, very young. No, I'm not going to sing anything for you right now. Lentz v. Universal video about Supreme Court. Yes, let's do another Lentz v. Universal video. I think did they grant certiorari in that? Are they going to hear Lentz at the Supreme Court level? Or that was the Supreme... No, it was the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit ruled that you have to consider fair use. It's a right. So now we want to find out if the Supreme Court is going to rule it as a right or not. I think that's where the status is on that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay, we've been at it for an hour and 43 minutes. Holy crap, I cannot do a live stream that doesn't last 2 hours, or almost 2 hours. Stormies, Leonard French, could you please answer my question? What was the question? It's the chat moves very quickly, and it's hard for me to keep track of it, and also keep track of what I'm saying. So, could someone find me his question, or if anyone has any questions that I've missed, I am looking at chat now, and I'm going to ask my moderators as well, Yoshi, to try and catch questions that I missed as well. All right, I see some questions coming in, and I'm going to try and pause the chat. There we go. Ardelkin, could they state that Murray got baited into a lawsuit in order to provide more content to HBO with the claim for extraneous influence to not sue or accept implicit defamation? No, you're not allowed to sue anybody for getting baited into a journalistic news story. Under certain circumstances, if it was done so under false circumstances. So remember a few months ago we talked about the duo that went on Chop and Steele that went on live TV programs after telling them we are a health centered organization and we're going to talk about exercise and health and athleticity, and then went on the show and pranked them and did ridiculous things. So that's closer to, if not already, some sort of misrepresentation or fraud. Murray getting baited into responding? No, he didn't have to respond. He had the choice to respond, and the most he's allowed to do is what he's doing, is respond and then file a lawsuit. That's really the most that he's allowed to do. Oh, holy crap. The Supreme Court declined Certiorari 3 days ago and I missed it? How did I miss it? That was Monday. Wow. So when the Supreme Court denies Certiorari, it's not necessarily a explicit agreement with the lower court's ruling, but it is an agreement that there isn't anything more for the Supreme Court to add, that it's not practical for the Supreme Court to look at it. So that means that ruling stands. Now, if there's a circuit split, and I don't know that there's a circuit split yet on the Lentz Universal case, but or is it Seventh Circuit? Was Lentz v. Universal Seventh Circuit? No, that was Jemmy Thomas's case was Seventh Circuit, I think. The Ninth Circuit case, if there's a circuit split, yes, the Supreme Court would have to be the one to resolve that. And if they've chosen not to resolve that, that's weird. But I don't know that there's a circuit split, so jeez, that's the end of Lentz v. Universal, and that means that fair use is a right. Woohoo! We won one, Internet. Oh jeez, they scroll so fast. Hop on Discord, you're going to send me the questions there? Okay. Where are you sending them to? Yoshi. Just let me know in chat where you're sending them to. Let me scroll back up, because it scrolls so fast. The fact that most of the text of the first count was copied to the second count, does that tell you this was rushed out? No, that's how you normally do counts. A lot of the repeating language is just so that I can say I put that statement in the original complaint. So even though some of it does sound awfully repetitive, I don't want to later get to the end of the case and have a defendant saying, oh, wait a second, you can't get damages for that because you didn't properly plead it. So they're just over-pleading, basically. Try singing the Constitution. That would be funny. That would be very funny. I think for July 4th we'll do a reading of the Declaration of Independence. What do you think? And then I'll try and do some history research, and we'll do a little show on the history. That sounds like fun. Who knew Bob was a social justice warrior? Emmett Brown. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for your comment. What would be HBO's best defense of this kind of claim? Mostly that these statements were not false. They're going to have to show the sources of their material, and as long as they can prove that their statements were true, and or true to the best of their knowledge and ability, or that they at least didn't say things that were false, then they'll get through it just fine. It will be just a matter of showing those facts. That's all. Is there going to be an outcome to the H3H3 case? You know, Kyle, I don't know if there's going to be a... Yes, there will be a ruling at some point, I'm sure. It has not happened yet. What I'll do is, while we're on stream right now, I'll look it up and check again. I check every single day to see if there's an update in the H3H3 case. And I'm checking right this moment. And drum roll, please. No. Date of last filing, 3/17/2017. So we haven't heard anything in over 3 months, and we are just waiting for the judge to decide and write the opinion in the case. It could very well be that the judge is doing, or the judge's clerk are doing their research first, and they want to write a comprehensive opinion that will be used as precedent for future cases. If that's happening, that's why this is taking so long. If that's not happening and the judge is just busy, or maybe it's not an important case, that happens sometimes too. JR Fresh, LOL, Bob can suck my dick. Do you agree, Leonard? I'll decline to answer that question. Any opinion on the effect of the Supreme Court's decision in Packingham v. North Carolina and the constitutionality of the DMCA's requirement that ISPs are to terminate access by repeat infringers? Is Packingham the one that said you have a right to the internet and you can't terminate someone's access to the internet? I think what the Supreme Court was saying there, and this is totally off the cuff, I have not read the decision, but I think what they're saying there is that a blanket or general "you can't go on the internet" order by a judge is unconstitutional, and that something would need to be much more highly tailored, because just saying you can't access the whole of humanity's information is probably too far and puts you at not just a slight disadvantage to other human beings, but at a huge disadvantage to operating as a human being in the actual world as it exists today. You basically need access to the internet. So yes, I'm sure people can still get banned from the internet, but it would have to be under highly specific circumstances, is my best guess without having actually read the opinion. What defines someone as a public figure? I don't know exactly where the line is, but there is a point at which a person is either already reached a public office, or is considered the public face of something, or makes themselves available as the public face of something. So, for example, I myself may have a difficult time saying that I would not be subject to public scrutiny on these videos because I have chosen to speak publicly. So, do I reach the level of a public figure? I don't know. But somewhere roundabout, probably now, is where I'm going to cross the line, and I'm not going to be a private citizen anymore, and I'm going to be a public figure with regards to these sorts of videos. So, who knows? Well, I'm sure someone knows exactly where the line is. I don't do enough defamation. The line is somewhere. There is definitely a line where you cross into having be a public figure. Is Mr. Murray a public figure? In my mind, probably not. It sounds to me like he's made public statements in the past, but not many, and not trying to be a public figure. But somebody could argue with me on that and show me evidence, and I would change my mind. For how much money is Bob suing? Unspecified. Unspecified damages to be proven at trial. I don't know what that is. Whether it's millions, billions, or $12,000. I don't know. Do you think Oliver will win? Yes, I think Oliver will win. I hope Oliver will win. It will require more than just the facts to win. HBO has to put up a good fight, so hopefully they're ready to put up that fight. I really don't imagine they're not, but, I'm a lawyer. I'm always going to stop short of saying, sure, of course it's going to happen that way. Especially when I've seen stuff go wrong so many times where I've thought, hey, this is going to be done and easy, and then it turned out to be a complete and utter cluster. Could I discuss something about SLAPP or anti-SLAPP in West Virginia? I don't know if West Virginia has an anti-SLAPP lawsuit or anti-SLAPP law. SLAPP is the Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation, and is the acronym given to basically frivolous and unmeritorious lawsuits that are just meant to keep people from publicizing things that plaintiffs don't want publicized. So let's say that I'm going to go speak out against the founding director of the Singing Boys of Pennsylvania, Kenneth Bernard Shade, because he sexually assaulted and molested 2 underage boys a few years ago. Let's say he does not want me saying that, even though what I've just said is absolutely factually accurate, and he really did and was caught by the state police and the FBI admitting to molesting 2 underage boys and with 1,101 counts of child pornography. Let's say he doesn't like that, he might file a lawsuit. Well, if my state has an anti-SLAPP law, I now have an extra cause of action to help me fight against his frivolous lawsuit trying to take my statements or publication down. So if there is an anti-SLAPP law in West Virginia, HBO will counterclaim that law as their source of damages, or one of their sources of damages in their counterclaim. And that will be just one additional source of law, one additional claim, one additional source of potential recovery in the case, and one more basically defense weapon that a defensive party can use against a offensive public participation lawsuit, anti-public participation lawsuit. Got it? Warner asks about lawsuits with a religious basis. No, I have not, in my private practice, handled anything that had a religious nature to it, nor have I covered anything that really had a religious nature to it. I do want to speak a lot about the separation of church and state and why it's so important, and why the separation of church and state benefits the church way more than the opposite. And some places might not realize it. I happen to be a spiritual person, a former religious person, and I have no animosity to moderate and totally reasonable religious beliefs. It's when it's taken to an extreme, or when it's used for an unjust or unsavory purpose, that I really start to get mad at religion, especially having given so many of my years to it. Will there be any changes to rules regarding patent trolls? I'm seeing lots of cases come across my newswire that there are changes to patent and patent trolling and things like that, and I will speak on those eventually. I don't have enough information to speak on it off the top of my head. Is this just an attempt at a money drain by the Coal King? No, there is no way that this is going to drain HBO's pockets. Each of the 136 million subscribers are paying $10+ a month to HBO. They're not going anywhere. If anything, they've just secured their spot, I think. Where am I? Packingham again. Nope, I just skipped back, that's all. Can I recap what the lawsuit says in 20 seconds? Basically, the lawsuit says that John Oliver and the show spent too much time highlighting the safety problems and the mine collapse, and that the mine collapse could have been caused by a seismic-like event, and because it could have been that, and because Murray does do some safety-conscious things, that means that John Oliver misreported, cast him in a false light, and defamed him and injured his emotions, like legally injured him emotionally, and is therefore responsible for all of the damage that came from that. And that this is going to hurt Mr. Murray and all of his companies, and that Mr. Murray is at the end of his life, so this is especially egregious. So I don't necessarily agree with all of that. I think you reap what you sow, and Mr. Murray's hands are not entirely clean in this one, so I don't think he's going to get too terribly far. And I didn't mean that as a pun, but that was also a kind of a pun. That said, I am trying to just ratchet it back. I do respect that the man is at the end of his life, and, I'm not interested in attacking that any further. It's not going to be long, and we'll be rid of him. As cold as that may sound, I honestly have very little patience and empathy for old, archaic, ingrained ways of thinking that are not open to adapting, not to the times, but rather to our understanding of the human condition and human psychology. My uncle was a severe alcoholic. He died relatively young, in his early 60s or late 50s, I think. And I don't think any of us shed a tear. He had made us miserable. He had ruined at least one of my father's businesses. And every time he touched our lives, he had made things difficult and emotional. So I don't think anyone was upset at seeing him go. That's not any sort of legal claim. If Mr. Murray did things, and those things, when they come to the public eye, when they come into the spotlight, when someone shines a light on them or reports on them, when those things have natural consequences of people not liking those things, that's not defamation. That's not illegal. That's not legally actionable. That's being a crappy person, or maybe it's still possible to get public ire without being a crappy person, but that's crappy circumstances, not necessarily defamation. Certainly it can be done via defamation, but sorry, that was a more than 20-second recap. William Froh says, I thought John Oliver made Murray look better than he really is. I remember when the mine caved in Utah, what a self-serving ass he seemed to be. Cerulean, I didn't forget about you. I just didn't ask you to summarize the questions. There you go, Yoshi, where you posted them. Oh, there you go. Okay, I found it. Thank you. Short recap of the case, just did that. Who has to show up at a trial like this, if it goes to trial? So first there will be a lot of hemming and hawing in the court over who exactly are the parties and whether John Oliver is personally responsible. But yes, eventually the parties would have to personally show up if they are personally, individually named in the lawsuit. The company can send a representative, and the representative has to be knowledgeable of the situation to a certain extent, to a certain legal extent. Does John Oliver have protection because he's a comedian? Yes, to an extent. He's allowed to make these jokes and all that. But that protection is not really any extra protection than any of us have. However, the context of his show will help him. If me saying I'm doing legal education on my YouTube channel and then I go and start spouting false things and have an agenda and all that, that has less context than if I say, hey guys, I'm about to show you an entertaining piece that I made for you. You're going to say, okay, entertainment, I should suspend disbelief, I should expect things to be a little bit unrealistic, etc. So John Oliver is an entertainment news show, And we know from Fox News that entertainment news does not have to be accurate, or Fox News would be sued all the time successfully for many of the things that we all know that they've said. And many of the other media outlets as well, I'm sure. I'm just pointing to Fox News because that was who actually got sued and who actually won the case that they are entertainment news and do not have to report as accurately as we all had hoped, as I had hoped. So that standard should mean that people watching do know that they are watching entertainment news and that they will not take him as the same level of fact as, say, a government report. I noticed that some of the claims state that Oliver omitted facts. Can defamation be made on an omission? Not really. I would call that misleading, and I think that's where they're going with the false light. And I guess at some point you could reach a level of not saying things, but defamation does not have a requirement that you make affirmative statements. The only thing with defamation is that you have the statement that you did make has to be false. So if you say things that are true and then leave out things that are also true but change the context, that's not defamation. And I think Mr. Murray would have a big problem proving that. I almost called him Dr. Murray. Any opinion on the Supreme Court's decision? We covered that one. Can the court stay injunct the last? Yes. The standard is high. An injunction is only appropriate when there is an irreparable injury, a provable irreparable injury. In other words, an injury that is inevitable, is not going to be able to be repaired by money damages later. And that's probably not this. There would have to be some fact that Murray points to that says that the damage will be so severe that money won't compensate for it. Here's my best hypothetical off the top of my head. Let's say that you get a chance to ride in the space shuttle. It's your one and only chance. It's never going to happen again. Really not even millions of dollars is going to be able to buy you back onto the space shuttle. And somebody says something defamatory that causes the NASA space program to say, we aren't going to carry you. And it turns out that you're right, that you were being defamed, it was false. You could go to court and get an injunction that says that NASA still has to take you, at least without anything more, because... And here we're getting into issues of NASA being a third party, but the point is that the defamatory statement caused an irreparable injury, and the only way to repair the injury is with an injunction. That's when preliminary injunctions are appropriate. I do not think this reaches that level. They stated that the plaintiff is basically knocking on death's door. What happened if Bob shits the bed? Does anything about the case change? Not really. There would still be someone that he could designate that would be able to stand in for his claims, his heirs, people he assigns in the various companies, things like that. It does definitely cut off his emotional damage. He can't be suffering emotional damage anymore if he's dead. So you'd have to go for the emotional damage that occurred because of the thing and before he died, but you could not say that there were any damages after he died to him personally. Maybe to his companies. Theoretically, I don't think it's going to actually happen that way. Why did Murray sue HBO if it didn't seem like they would actually get anything? Well, maybe they're hoping. HBO certainly has the deep pockets. Maybe they're hoping they'll get something. This could be a Hail Mary. Or my theory was that this could be a PR move. This could be Murray Energy and all that, just basically making a PR statement through a fairly low-cost court document. And look, we're talking about it. It's working. Who am I? You know, I ask myself the same question all the time, and my spiritual beliefs, which are sort of Buddhist spiritual beliefs, are that I shouldn't really be seeking an identity. So that's who I am. I just am. That's who I am. I just am. And one day I will not be.
That is really all I have to say about that. What does it mean that the Let's Be Universal case was declined certiorari? The current judgment in the case is that fair use is a legal right that has to be considered by potential plaintiffs when issuing takedowns under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So if they issue a takedown, and you can then go on through evidence, through discovery, through testimony to prove that they did not do their proper due diligence, their proper fair use analysis, then you will recover your attorney's fees and costs, probably nothing more than that, for having sued them to maintain your rights. Maybe there'll be some kind of special or extra damages in there if there was some bad faith on their part, but in general, we're only talking about restitution, we're only talking about regular general damages, and that means you only get the money that you spent to defend the case in the first place. The letter that Murray Energy sent to HBO sounded like a preemptive cease and desist. Could that also be used as a defense for Murray, or would it more likely be considered a threat to HBO? It's both. It's neither. It's a meaningless, puffery document. We're going to sue you if you don't do what we say. If Murray Energy turns out to be right, then they'll cite that as evidence that they tried to resolve the thing earlier and should be due even more damages. If HBO turns out to be right, then they'll cite that as, look at how nuts Murray Energy was. They even tried to head us off before they even knew what was going on, and so we can point to that being frivolous, and maybe that's the beginning of the frivolity of the lawsuit. What would constitute a public person in regard to false light? We talked about that. I have no idea. What I could do real quick is false light, public figure. We'll look at New York Times v. Sullivan. A public figure is a person such as a politician, celebrity, or business leader. In the context of defamation actions as well as invasion of privacy, a public figure cannot base a lawsuit on incorrect, harmful statements unless there is proof that the writer or publisher acted with actual malice, knowledge of falsity, or reckless disregard for the truth. The burden of proof on defamation actions is higher in the case of a public figure. So that sounds to me, at first glance, like there could possibly be an argument that Mr. Murray is a public figure, and if he is, then that makes it even harder to prove defamation and false light. How could churches benefit from the separation of church and state? I personally think it legitimizes churches and things like that. If you try to have, what you have is a rabbit hole. If you try to have a church with any sort of control in public law, and which church, whose beliefs does Christmas fall on the 25th, or is that the winter solstice, or is that or whose version of Christianity, or whose version of another religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and who's going to be represented. So I honestly think it causes everyone fewer problems if we maintain the separation, and then churches can focus on being apolitical and their spiritual and religious messages rather than focusing on politicking, basically, which is a waste of churchgoers' dollars, because their church-going dollars should not, their tithing should not be being spent on politics. You're tax exempt. You don't pay taxes for your property, and you pay only your services for police and fire. And I've seen churches even try to get out of paying that. So we're just asking for churches to pay for their fair share and stay out of politics, because of the complicated nature of basically human rights. And when you throw God and different belief systems in there, and when those belief systems have no evidence behind them, when you cannot point to the man in the sky, or you cannot point to the ethereal being, or you cannot point to the doctrine and where it comes from, and what it's based on, then you have no argument to be dealing with actual human rights and actual human practicality. Instead, you should be dealing with the mysterious nature of the universe and where we came from, where we're going, why we're here, whether we should be working together or whether it's every man for himself. Or those are all wonderful and mysterious questions to be asking and answering, and there is no need to start taking and putting people's individual rights into that, and putting people who have religious beliefs, have those religious beliefs over other people's religious beliefs in regards to human rights. That's just so unbelievably complicated, and so many people seem to want to get into that as quickly as possible. Could there be... Did I see somebody ask a question about something without lawyers? Oh, I'm missing all the donations. I'm sorry. I'm reading the questions from another screen. I'm missing all the donations. Let me go back here. Oh, now I've scrolled past them again. Could anyone make a lawsuit in the U.S. without lawyers? Yes, that is a sad and good reality. For Computer Fist, thank you so much for your 20... I don't know what Kroner? Oh, I don't know what DKK is. Yes, anybody can file a lawsuit. That is actually we're going to talk about that in the Just 3D Print It lawsuit. They filed a local small claims court lawsuit and won that by default, and that's why they think that they've won a court case in their realm. Could you try and claim the emotional damage hastened his death and try for more? Yes, they could try to claim for that, and if they're able to prove that that is some kind of wrongful death or something like that. Those are not my areas of practice, so please do not quote me that the wrongful death is the proper thing. But you're getting closer to those kinds of damages. So yes, they would be able to claim more and more damages from more and more injury, basically. Will this media circus make the lawsuit a foothold for future class action against Mr. Murray? I don't know about class action. A class action requires a number of plaintiffs, and I don't think we have a number of plaintiffs here that all have like the same claim, and they can all be easily adjudicated by one body. No, it doesn't. That is there a future lawsuit? I also don't think so. Really, their only misstatement or misstep is filing this lawsuit in the first place. So any counterclaims I think we're going to see are all going to be related to having filed a lawsuit against HBO at all. I noticed Oliver structured his words very carefully. Do you think he was careful enough? I do. I do think he was careful enough. But then again, I've only watched the segment 1.5 times, and the first time was for entertainment, not for detail and meticulous analysis. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go watch that again, maybe not right this very second, and I'll talk about it either in the next video or the next live stream. Other questions? Cerulean, thank you. I did catch the thing about that. The anti-slap law. So let me go back to the regular chat. What is the official term for the fans of the French? French fries? French kissers? Well, see, Leonard means lion-hearted, so I was going to call you my pride, but that might be a little too close to the homosexual community for everyone's taste. So I don't know what I'm going to call you yet. I think so far you're my fans, but whether we have a pet name for us, we'll see. Is this recorded? Chat live. Yes, we are live. Leonard, what quadcopters do you have in the background? That's a 550 size home built that's hanging on your left, my right. It's one of my favorite quads, and the only reason I don't fly it more is I have a newer DJI quad that is a camera quad, and I love the camera drone. I mostly wanted to fly for camera and filming purposes anyway. That other quad will be taken out very shortly, I hope. Weather just got nice here in the past month, and that quad is super high speed, super powerful. I really, really like it. I just got the Hall effect gimbals for the controller, and I'm really looking forward to testing those out. So it's just a matter of time. I have a lot of interests, and I'm one of those people who has this high quality problem of never having enough time to do all the things that I'm interested in, and never having enough money either. So I guess I'm blessed a little bit that I'm not rich, because if I was, I probably wouldn't know what to do with it, or would probably have done frivolous things with it. And the fact that I'm just slowly building myself up financially is probably good for me, because I'm able to make some probably better more sound financial decisions than let's go buy a big expensive drone, or let's go, you know what I mean? Let's go have a big expensive adventure. Since I can't do big expensive adventures, I try to get the most out of the inexpensive adventures, which I think there's something to be said for that. What's it mean for John Oliver? It's HBO versus some dying coal mining business. I think it just means more attention. I think it really just validates that he's doing his job. I mean, if nobody's saying anything bad about you, you're not pissing anybody off. And if he's not pissing anybody off, he's not really doing a great job as a journalist, is he? I know it's not a job as his journalist to piss people off, but by shining a light on cockroaches, don't you make them scatter and show everybody how many there were? And isn't this, and when they're upset at you for doing that, doesn't that validate that you're doing the right kind of thing? L Wizard 5, any bar prep tips? Yeah, you guys are you got a month left. You got a little over 4 weeks to your bar exam. Congratulations on getting this far. First, I would say make sure that you're taking care of yourself physiologically and mentally. I don't mean that you have to be lazy or anything, but you definitely don't want to be stressing out about the bar exam 24 hours a day. You need to take time to give your brain space to process what you're learning. You need to take time to give your whole brain stimulation. That means the right brain as well. That means art and music and drawing and playing and singing and dancing. When I studied for the bar exam, I paid for the Barbary course, approximately $1,000. I think I paid for the audio lectures as well. That was additional cost, I think. And I actually did not enjoy the written material that much. I did review the outlines and I reviewed the written questions, and I made a few attempts at answering the written questions, but I actually did not attend my live lectures, especially not when I heard that they were just video broadcasts. Instead, I took the live lectures and my copies of them and the audio lectures, and I listened to them while I was riding my bike around the Greenbelt in Harrisburg near law school, about a 10-mile ride in each direction. I know it's only a 12 or whatever 14-mile Greenbelt, but what you do is you start at the one end, go 2/3 of the way around the sea, and then all the way back, and so it becomes 20 miles. And so 20 miles a day, about 3 to 4 times a week, I would study my law lectures that way. And I would basically relax the rest of the time. And I did fine. I did not pass the bar with flying colors. I was not the top or even close to the top or even in the middle, but I passed the bar just fine. So basically, if you do better than I did, you should be fine on the bar exam. Make sure that you're stimulating your whole brain. Make sure you're getting enough rest, relaxation, energy, effort. Make sure you're taking care of your anxiety. Make sure you're seeing your friends. Make sure you're otherwise being a human being while also focusing on studying. And as long as you don't kill yourself with all that, you should be able to be fine. Definitely take your MBE multiple choice questions a lot. I probably did those several times. I went through probably the 500 question bank several times. So those are my tips for the bar exam. Yeah, what did I say? I said Barbary. All right. Thank you so much for emphasizing self-care. Yes, it's very important. I am toying with the idea of talking about mental health on this channel. It's very important and extremely stigmatized in the U.S. and very stigmatized in the legal profession as well. I happen to have a ton of experience with the mental health profession, so I thought maybe I'd be a good candidate to talk openly about it. And since I'm already talking openly about the practice of law, and everybody seems to like that, I wondered if maybe there wouldn't be interest in covering those as it relates to real life and the practice of law and that stuff too. What do you call a priest that gets his JD? A father-in-law. Patrick, thank you so much for the first lawyer joke in a while that has actually made me laugh and a decent joke and not been one of these terribly derogatory lawyer jokes, which I'm okay with. We often earn them. So Does bar exam meet something about alcohol? Yeah, yeah. You want to watch that. Save the alcohol and other intoxicants until after the bar exam. That's what I did. I partied really hard after the bar exam, not during. I think I had a drink in between days of the bar exam, just so I could excuse me, so I could relax for that day. Because when you get done with so those of you who've taken the SATs or any other standardized test, you kind of feel wonky afterwards. Your brain's like, hey, I need a break. It's about twice that, 2 or 3 times that after the bar exam. You're pretty much completely wiped out and you just want to do nothing. Like, I've never been so wiped out in my entire life. Um, okay. Is there any dispensation made for lawyers that have disabilities that might impact time that them? Yes, yes. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires that anybody who interacts with disabled people has to give them reasonable accommodation. Well, not anybody. Any business, court, government, whatever, that interacts with disabled people has to give them a reasonable accommodation for their disability. So that would definitely mean giving a lawyer with a learning disability more time to process things. That would definitely mean giving a person with a physical disability assistance or access to the courthouse. Um, but that also means that they don't have to do any more than that. In a recent custody case, I had an expert witness who was blind. We asked for the judge to give her permission to testify remotely, to testify over the phone, and that was denied. She was expected to be able to take her guide dog through the courthouse and that's fine. She did. The difficulty of it was just her expected burden. Um, the courthouse, of course, has handicapped accessible things, and a guard was available to walk her through the courthouse. So they did. They provided a reasonable accommodation, but almost nothing more. And so that's how I would expect any disabled attorney to be accommodated, would be with a reasonable accommodation for what they need, and that's it. Zachary asked what the bar exam is. The bar exam is when they say passing the bar or raising the bar. That's the bar. The bar exam is the exam to allow lawyers to be licensed as lawyers. Or should I say, to allow law graduates to be licensed as lawyers. You apply for, because you have to pass more than one exam. You have to pass not only the multi-state bar exam, which is a multiple choice question test about the general law. You have to pass a written exam that applies to your local state. You have to pass a professional responsibility exam that means that you understand your professional obligations and your ethical obligations. And you have to pass a character and fitness exam, which is not even an exam you participate in too much. You just answer some of their questions and then they research your background in depth and make sure that you are of the proper character and fitness to be a licensed attorney in that area. So that's what it involves. Okay, we're going on 2 hours and 30 minutes here. I think I need to end the stream. I think that's the end of the stream, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I think we'll take this off and I will address you directly. I want to thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for your support. I want to also thank my Patreon supporters, especially the $50 supporters, who this month are Josh Meinsicker, John Cripps, Backsorn, Weston Loney, and John Steele. I think there's a whole bunch of $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on the LED panel behind me, and there are a whole bunch of $1 and $2 supporters who are also supporting. We're up to, I think, $900 a month here, and that's really starting to approach an amount of money that will make a real difference in my ability to produce this content and really build this into what I think will be an actual. I don't even think I really want it to be. I want it to be a real entity. I would like to form this as an LLC or whatever the appropriate corporate form would be, and try to turn this into some sort of legal aid or legal education organization, or maybe maybe it'll get Googled, and maybe I'll get picked up by some other organization. I'm not going to say any names. I have applied to some organizations, and who knows what other offers will come my way from having done this. There's already lots of attention, so if I gain the support of others in the legal community who are responsible for sponsoring legal education opportunities like this, I just see this growing and growing and growing. And who knows, if I keep building numbers and you guys keep donating like this whole thing might be able to sustain itself even without some official support from some public service organization or some government grant. So I'm sorry for all of the thank yous for the support, but I really do mean it. This has floored the heck out of me. I never expected that you all were this interested in law, let alone that you wanted me to bring these things to you. So thank you so much again. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. In my next few videos, we're going to talk about the Just 3D Print It situation, where they are threatening to and possibly have sued some YouTubers or at least some 3D printing organizations for over the use of third-party 3D printed CAD files and things, and then some allegations that they were committing copyright infringement or contract violations by using these 3D prints and CAD files without permission or in violation of contract. So then we're also going to talk about the Prenda Law thing. Prenda Law, John Steele, Paul Hansmeier, and Paul Duffy are the true definition of copyright trolls. They made pornographic movies themselves to then post to the Pirate Bay and other torrent sites to then collect IP addresses of file sharers to then sue for thousands of dollars. And not only were they caught, it was epic, and I just really haven't been able to share all of the epic details with you in one video. So I'm working on a slightly longer video that will have all of the videos, including the Star Trek complaint, including Alan Cooper, who was a gardener whose name and signature were used to assign copyrights that didn't exist, and including the eventual smackdowns that they got in the higher level and their prosecution by, I think it was the Department of Homeland Security's Cybercrime Division. I mean, you really gotta be doing shit to get that kind of attention. So thank you for joining me. I'm gonna check Yoshi here. Okay, Yoshi's done too. So thank you, Yoshi and Cerulean, for being my moderators. I think saw Sarah in there as well. Thank you, everyone. If I missed anybody, thank you. I'm sorry that I missed you. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, signing off, and I'll see you in my next video.